In a quiet African village surrounded by golden fields and towering baobab trees, Eshe lived a simple yet peaceful life. She was known for her gentle nature and kind heart, always helping elders and children alike. Her father, a respected hunter, had been the pride of the village, but his sudden and mysterious death left a void in her life. Her mother, desperate for stability, remarried a wealthy trader named Jafari. With him came Zalira, her new stepmother, and Ayira, her stepsister. Zalira was a woman of sharp words and sharper schemes, always looking for ways to elevate her status. Ayira, on the other hand, was beautiful, but filled with envy. She hated how the village spoke highly of Eshe's kindness, how even without trying, Eshe captured the admiration of the young men. Ayira longed for attention, yet no matter how much she adorned herself in fine beads or spoke with a honeyed voice, the village still saw Eshe as the true gem. Despite their cold treatment, Eshe never retaliated. She continued to live humbly, weaving baskets and fetching water, content with the little happiness she could find. But deep inside, Ayira's jealousy simmered like an unspoken curse, waiting for the right moment to strike. One day, news spread through the village like wildfire. Prince Tao, a mighty warrior and the son of a great king, was coming to choose a bride. The village erupted in excitement. Women adorned themselves with their finest beads, braided their hair beautifully, and practiced graceful smiles. Ayira was especially eager. She saw this as her chance to finally be chosen over Eshe. When the prince arrived, he was unlike what many had imagined. He was strong and noble, but he did not seem impressed by riches or beauty alone. Instead, he watched closely, observing the way people treated one another. When he met Eshe, she did not try to dazzle him with fancy words or fine clothes. She greeted him with warmth and respect, offering water to him and his guards, before asking for nothing in return. Her kindness shone brighter than any gold. Prince Tao was drawn to her gentle nature and pure heart. While other girls laughed loudly and tried to win his attention, Eshe remained humble, never pretending to be someone she was not. After spending time in the village, he made his choice. He stood before the elders and declared, "I have found the one. Eshe will be my bride." The villagers gasped in excitement, and Eshe's eyes widened in surprise. The prince promised to return in 3 moons for their wedding, leaving the village in celebration. But not everyone rejoiced. Ayira's hands clenched into fists, her face dark with jealousy. How could Eshe, the quiet, simple girl, win the heart of a prince? Rage boiled inside her as she watched the villagers shower Eshe with blessings. She refused to accept this fate. That night, in the shadows of their home, she made a vow. She would take what should have been hers, no matter what it cost. Zalira saw a golden opportunity in Ayira's jealousy. If Ayira married Prince Tao, their family would rise in status, and she would gain power in the village. She refused to let Eshe, the daughter of a mere hunter, take what she believed belonged to her own child. One evening, as Eshe prepared for bed, Zalira and Ayira put their plan into motion. With a fake smile, Zalira brought Eshe a bowl of warm porridge, something she had never done before. Eshe, touched by the rare kindness, ate without suspicion. Within moments, her head became heavy, her limbs weak. The room spun around her as darkness swallowed her whole. Before she could cry for help, she collapsed. Under the cover of night, Zalira and Ayira carried Eshe to a hidden chamber beneath their hut, a place no one would think to look. They locked the heavy wooden door, leaving her trapped in the cold, airless space. By morning, rumors had already begun to spread. Zalira, with tears in her eyes, wailed in the village square, claiming that Eshe had run away with a stranger in the night, betraying the prince's trust. The villagers, who once admired Eshe, now whispered in disappointment. How could she do this? They asked each other. She was not as pure as we thought. Some shook their heads in pity, others in anger. The shame was unbearable. When Prince Tao heard the news, his heart hardened. He had trusted Eshe, but now she was gone. With Eshe out of the way, Ayira stepped forward as if she were the perfect choice all along. She played the role well, graceful, sweet, and devoted. She spoke gently to the prince, telling him she had always admired him from afar. Her lies were smooth, and the prince, though still hurt by Eshe's disappearance, saw no reason to doubt her. The elders, eager to see the prince wed, agreed to a rushed wedding. Preparations began immediately. Drums echoed through the village. Songs of celebration filled the air. But beneath one hut, in a dark chamber, Eshe lay in silence, weak and forgotten, as the world above prepared to replace her. Days passed, and Eshe remained locked away in the darkness of the hidden chamber. Weak and hungry, she could barely move. She called out for help, but no one could hear her. Her throat was dry, her body trembling with exhaustion. She felt forgotten, abandoned by the very people who once praised her. But she refused to give up. She banged on the wooden door, whispering prayers to the spirits, hoping that someone, anyone, would hear her. One night, when the village was quiet, an old blind woman named Mama Jahar wandered nearby. She had once been a powerful seer, respected by all, but time had made the villagers forget her wisdom. Now she lived alone at the edge of the village, listening to the whispers of the wind and the secrets of the earth. As she passed by Zalira's hut, she stopped suddenly. A faint sound reached her ears, a weak, desperate cry. Guided by instinct, Mama Jahar followed the sound, placing her hands on the ground, feeling the vibrations of Eshe's struggle. "Who is there?" she asked in a low voice. Eshe, barely able to speak, whispered back, "Please, help me." Mama Jahar pressed her hands against the hidden door, feeling its old, rough wood. With surprising strength for someone so frail, she pushed and pried at the lock until, at last, it gave way. The door creaked open and Eshe tumbled into the old woman's arms. Tears streamed down Eshe's face as she gasped for fresh air. Mama Jahar held her close and whispered, "The truth will reveal itself on the day of fate, but only if you find the hidden flame." Eshe, too weak to ask what it meant, simply nodded. Mama Jahar helped her stand, and with unsteady steps, Eshe escaped into the night. The village was asleep, unaware that the girl they had betrayed was now free. With nowhere else to go, Eshe ran toward the forest, her heart pounding in her chest. She did not know what the prophecy meant, nor did she understand why this had happened to her. But deep inside, she felt that her journey was far from over. The wind howled through the trees, the shadows stretched long and dark, but she kept moving forward. The truth would come, and when it did, the world would finally see her side of the story. Eshe stumbled through the dense forest, her body weak, but her heart filled with determination. The night air was cold, and the sounds of the wild surrounded her. Whispering trees, distant animal cries, and the rustling of unseen creatures. She did not know where she was going, only that she had to keep moving. Then, as if guided by an unseen force, she saw a faint golden glow in the distance. Drawn to the light, she pushed past thick vines and towering trees until she reached a hidden clearing. Before her stood an ancient shrine, its stone pillars covered in strange symbols, glowing softly under the moonlight. The air around it felt different, heavy with mystery, yet warm with unseen energy. Eshe took a cautious step forward when suddenly a voice echoed all around her, soft yet powerful, like the wind itself speaking. "The one who walks in truth will set the fire ablaze." Eshe froze, her heart pounding. "Who is there?" she whispered, but no one answered. The shrine remained still, yet the voice had left behind a message she could not ignore. Her eyes fell on a raised stone platform in the center of the shrine. Upon it sat a fire pit, dark and cold, as if waiting for something. She stepped closer, her hands trembling. Taking a deep breath, she reached out. The moment her fingers touched the stone, a sudden gust of wind swirled around her, lifting her hair, sending chills down her spine. Then, before her very eyes, the fire roared to life, its flames dancing high and golden. But something was strange. It did not burn like ordinary fire. It felt warm, but did not harm her. It flickered with a glow that pulsed like a heartbeat, as if it were alive. Eshe realized at that moment that this was no ordinary flame. It was the fire of truth, a sacred gift from the spirits. And now she understood the prophecy. If she could take this fire to the wedding, it would reveal what was hidden. It would show the world what had truly happened to her. Determined, Eshe reached into the flames. Instead of burning her, they wrapped around her hand like golden ribbons of light. She held them close, knowing that this fire was her only chance to reclaim her life. With renewed strength, she turned back toward the village. The wedding was near, and with this sacred fire, the truth would finally come to light. The day of the grand wedding arrived, and the village was alive with celebration. Drums echoed through the air, women danced in bright-colored fabrics, and the scent of roasted meat filled the streets. Everyone had gathered in the village square, eager to witness the union of Prince Tao and Ayira. The elders sat in their honored places, while the prince stood tall, dressed in royal garments, waiting for his bride. Ayira walked gracefully toward him, her face glowing with pride. She was adorned in the finest beads and gold, her smile wide as she prepared to take what she had stolen. Zalira stood nearby, watching with satisfaction. Their plan had worked. Soon, Ayira would be a princess, and Eshe would be nothing but a forgotten name. But in the shadows, hidden beneath a dark cloak, Eshe stood watching. Her heart pounded, but she gripped the sacred fire tightly, feeling its warmth give her strength. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Just as Ayira reached out to take the prince's hands, ready to speak the sacred vows, a strong voice rang through the air. "Stop!" The crowd turned sharply. Gasps filled the square. A woman stepped forward, pulling back her hood. It was Eshe. The villagers stared in shock. Some whispered in fear, others in disbelief. "It cannot be," one man muttered. She was gone. Ayira's face turned pale, her hands trembling slightly. But then she forced a laugh and turned to Prince Tao. "My prince," she said sweetly, "this is a trick. She is a liar who ran away and now wishes to ruin our happiness." Zalira stepped beside her daughter, lifting her chin with confidence. "The prince will not believe you, Eshe," she said with a smirk. "You are nothing but a disgrace to this village." The crowd murmured in agreement. After all, they had believed the story of Eshe's betrayal for months. Why would they think differently now? But Eshe stood firm. She met Ayira's eyes with a quiet strength and whispered, "Then let the truth speak for itself." She raised her hand, revealing the sacred fire, its golden flames flickering in the sunlight. The moment had come. The world was about to see what had really happened. Silence fell over the village as Eshe lifted her hand, revealing the sacred fire burning brightly in her palm. The golden flames danced without harming her, their light flickering like whispers from the spirits. The villagers stepped back, eyes wide with fear and wonder. Never had they seen such a thing. Prince Tao stared at Eshe, his expression unreadable. His heart pounded in his chest. Could this truly be the woman he had chosen? The woman he had once trusted? He took a hesitant step forward, his eyes locked on the mysterious fire. "This fire," Eshe said, her voice steady, "does not burn those who walk in truth. It reveals what is hidden. If I am lying, let it consume me. But if I speak the truth, then let it show you everything." A heavy silence filled the air. Then, slowly, Prince Tao reached out his hand. The moment his fingers touched the flames, a powerful force swept through the village. The fire roared higher, and suddenly, the sky darkened as if night had fallen in the middle of the day. Gasps and cries echoed through the crowd as the sacred fire revealed its truth. Like a vision carved into the air, images flickered before everyone's eyes. Eshe drinking the drugged porridge, her body collapsing as Ayira and Zalira carried her away. They saw the hidden chamber where Eshe had been locked for days, her weak hands pounding on the door, her voice crying out for help. The villagers gasped as the truth unraveled before them like a story written by the spirits themselves. Ayira's face drained of color. Her lips trembled as she took a step back. "No, this cannot be," she whispered. Zalira, too, looked around desperately, but there was nowhere to run. The people who had once believed her lies now stared at her with rage and disgust. The elders shook their heads, their eyes filled with disappointment. Prince Tao's fists clenched as the final image faded, leaving behind only the burning truth in Eshe's hands. He turned slowly toward Ayira, his voice low but firm. "You betrayed me. You betrayed your own sister." Ayira fell to her knees, her beautiful wedding robes pooling around her. She tried to speak, to defend herself, but no words came. The truth had been seen. There was no escaping it now. The village was silent, heavy with the weight of the truth that had just been revealed. The elders, their faces stern with disappointment, stepped forward. They turned to Zalira and Ayira, their voices filled with judgment. "You have deceived us," one elder said. "You spread lies and destroyed the honor of an innocent girl. Such wickedness cannot be forgiven." The people, once blind to the truth, now glared at Zalira and Ayira with anger. Mothers held their children close, and men shook their heads in disgust. Even those who had once believed Ayira's sweet words now saw her for what she truly was, a snake who had tried to steal what was never hers. "You are banished from this village," the chief elder declared. "From this day forward, neither of you shall set foot here again." Zalira opened her mouth to protest, but no words came. Fear flickered in her eyes as she realized there was no escape. She grabbed Ayira's wrist, whispering frantically, "We must leave now." But Ayira, blinded by panic, yanked herself free and tried to run. Her heart pounded as she pushed through the crowd, desperate to escape the shame that now clung to her. She ran wildly, her wedding robes dragging through the dirt, her mind racing. But in her desperation, she did not see the small rock in her path. Her foot caught, and she stumbled forward, straight into the sacred fire. A piercing scream tore through the air as the golden flames engulfed her. But instead of burning her flesh, something far worse happened. Her beauty, the very thing she had always used to get what she wanted, began to wither away. Her smooth skin aged in seconds, wrinkles forming, her hair turning grey and brittle. She clutched her face, screaming, but the fire had already cursed her. The villagers gasped in horror as Ayira stumbled out of the flames, now unrecognizable. She looked at her hands, now frail and old, and let out a wail of despair. She turned to her mother, her voice broken. "Mother, help me." But Zalira took a step back, her own face twisted in fear. She knew there was nothing she could do. The spirits had cast their judgment. With no other choice, Zalira and Ayira fled the village, disappearing into the wilderness. No one followed. No one cared. As the dust settled, all eyes turned back to Esha. She stood tall, the sacred fire still flickering beside her, untouched by its curse. Prince Tao, who had watched everything in stunned silence, finally stepped forward. His heart ached with guilt as he looked at the woman he had once loved, the woman he had doubted. Slowly he fell to his knees before Esha. "I was blind to the truth," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I let lies cloud my heart, and for that, I beg your forgiveness. My love for you has never faded. If you can find it in your heart to forgive me, I swear to spend my life making it right." Tears welled in Esha's eyes. She had suffered, been betrayed, and lost everything. But now, standing in the light of the truth, she realized she had also won. She had reclaimed her honor, her voice, and her destiny. The village watched in silence, waiting for her answer. The village, once clouded by lies and betrayal, was now filled with joy and celebration. The elders, having witnessed the truth unfold before their eyes, declared that Eshe and Prince Tao's wedding must take place immediately. It was not just a union of love, but a sign that justice had been restored. The people cheered, their voices echoing across the land, for they knew they had wronged Esha, and now it was time to make things right. The wedding preparations began at once. Women decorated the village square with bright fabrics and flowers, filling the air with the scent of fresh blossoms. The drummers played joyful rhythms, and dancers moved in a circle, celebrating the return of the true bride. The entire village, even those who had once doubted Esha, now honored her with gifts and blessings. They had seen the power of truth and the punishment of lies, and they knew that Eshe was destined for greatness. When the moment arrived, Eshe stepped forward, dressed in the most beautiful attire, her hair adorned with golden beads that shimmered in the sunlight. She no longer carried the weight of sorrow. She stood tall, proud, and strong. The sacred fire, which had revealed the truth, now burned gently beside her, its glow blessing the ceremony. Prince Tao, dressed in royal robes, took Esha's hands in his eyes filled with deep admiration and love. "I vow to honor and cherish you," he said, his voice steady, "to protect you, to listen to you, and to never let falsehoods come between us again." Eshe smiled, her heart full. "And I vow to lead with kindness and strength," she said, "to forgive, but never forget, to ensure that no woman in this village suffers as I have." As they exchanged their vows, a warm breeze passed through the village, carrying with it a strange energy. The people gasped as they turned to see Mama Jahar, the old blind seer, standing still, her face lifted toward the sky. Slowly she blinked, and a tear rolled down her cheek. Then, for the first time in years, she opened her eyes, and she could see. "The spirits have spoken," she whispered, smiling. "Justice has been served." A wave of awe and joy spread through the crowd. The ancestors had blessed this union, and the village would prosper under Esha's rule. She was no longer just the kind-hearted girl who had been wronged. She was now their queen, a leader who would protect truth and ensure that no woman in the village was ever silenced again. As night fell, the celebration continued with laughter, music, and dancing under the stars. The flames of the sacred fire burned brightly, not as a warning, but as a symbol of truth, love, and the justice that had finally been restored. As the night of celebration faded into a new dawn, the village stood renewed under Eshe's reign. Laughter filled the air, children ran freely, and the people worked together with pride. The dark shadow of betrayal had lifted, replaced by harmony and prosperity. The once divided village was now united under a leader who had suffered but risen stronger. Eshe, no longer just a girl of kindness, had become a queen of wisdom and justice. The storyteller's voice echoed through the land, carried by the wind, like an ancient truth whispered by the ancestors. Those who build their happiness on lies will always fall, but truth will always rise like the sun. As the camera zoomed out, the kingdom stretched far and wide, flourishing under Eshe's rule. The fields were green, the rivers flowed freely, and the people thrived. The sacred fire, once a symbol of revelation, now stood as a reminder that truth would always prevail. Far beyond the village, across the endless deserts, a lone figure wandered. Ayira, once admired for her beauty, was now unrecognizable. Her face was aged and hollow, her once smooth hands now rough and trembling. She stumbled forward, lost and forgotten, haunted by the weight of her own greed. The whispers of the spirits followed her, a cruel reminder of what she had lost. No crown, no jewels, no love, only the empty vastness of the desert, stretching before her with no end. The wind carried away her cries as the sun rose over the kingdom, bathing Eshe's land in golden light. And with that, the story came to a close, not just as a tale of revenge, but a lesson for all who heard it. The truth, no matter how long it takes, will always find its way home.